So with no further delays, I would now like to move on to our next solo session led by Nat Parameswaran, Group Vice President, Global Procurement and Supply Chain, USG Boral. Nat Parameswaran is currently the Group Vice President, Global Procurement and Supply Chain at USG Boral Building Products Limited, a $1.7 building materials manufacturing company that operates in 12 countries across Australia and New Zealand, Southeast Asia, China, Korea, India, and Middle East geographies. Nat Parameswaran has global responsibility of procurement and supply chain function across the companies and is accountable for managing spend of over $600 million across a network of 12 countries. Nat is an accomplished speaker at various conferences and author of numerous articles on manufacturing, global sourcing and supply chain related topics in leading business journals. Can we hear a big round of applause for Nat Parameswaran, ladies and gentlemen. Over to you, sir.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that introduction. Where is Mr. Brigadier? Thank you, Brigadier, for keeping everybody active and alive right after lunch. I owe you one. My name is Nat Parameswaran, as I was introduced by her. I am the Group Vice President of Global Procurement and Supply Chain of a company called USG Boral. So almost none of you probably have heard about this company. So what I'm going to do first is to actually show you a video as to who we are, and then come back and say what we did as a procurement transformation journey there.
A new market leader is born. Boral and USG have come together to revolutionise the wall and ceiling lining market in Asia, Australasia and the Middle East. USG Boral has one aim: to improve the way we live by changing the way buildings are designed and built. Each one of our employees will play a fundamental role in ensuring the long-term success of our new organisation. With more than 150 years combined industry experience, USG Boral brings together a rich history of innovation and service. Boral is a global construction and building materials company with a rich 68-year history. Boral has the leading plasterboard manufacturing and distribution footprint across Asia and Australia. The USG Corporation is a world leader in plasterboard and mineral wall ceiling tiles, with a history going back more than a century. USG is at the forefront of building products technology and innovation globally. Together, USG Boral will become the new market leader in interior and exterior lightweight building products and systems, with operations spanning 12 countries, with the most superior plasterboard technology, ceiling cement board, fiberboard and joint compound building products available, and accessing some of the fastest growing markets in the world. Our competitive advantages will help us grow our business and increase opportunities for our shareholders, our customers and our employees. It's a great time to be part of USG Boral.
So generally what happens is, right after I present that video, it's still not clear in people's mind what exactly we do. So think about this. When people use the term Xerox, they use it interchangeably with photocopying, right? So Xerox can be used as a verb, where you can say, I'm going to go Xerox this, right? Our product, which is called sheetrock, is our brand name that is used interchangeably in the building materials industry. So anytime you see any false ceiling where there is spotlights and stuff, the underlying material is what is called a plasterboard, gypsum plasterboard. And invariably across the world, anytime you see a false ceiling, it's probably made by us. So the next time you hear the name sheetrock, it can be used interchangeably with, I'm going to be sheetrocking my home, which means I'm actually going to be placing plasterboard false ceiling in my home. So that's who we are. So we make other products that actually support these ceilings, including ceiling systems, framing, tools and accessories, etc. With that introduction, I think my presentation here will make more sense as to why we went through the journey that we went through. So here we are on the procurement transformation journey. So as you saw in the video, USG and Boral are two different companies that came together to be present in the Asia, Northeast Asia, Southeast Asia, Australasia, India, and the Middle East market. So this is 12 countries in the network, having more than 30 manufacturing locations across the board. When we started this journey, most of the supply chain was done autonomously at every country. Each business unit ran its own supply chain and procurement function, which is strategic sourcing, demand and supply planning, logistics, and contract management. Clearly, in this context of Asia and Australasia, there is a clear merit in having those operations exist at each and every country. However, what was missing was the collaboration, the high-performing supply chain network that needed to be built so that supply chain and procurement became a strategic function in our organization. So limitations of a decentralized model, which is where we were, is, some of this is pretty obvious: limited scope and lack of clarity, because each country kind of operates on its own. This one is important. Somebody mentioned today, procurement and supply chain. It's very important that we have a seat in the table. Procurement cannot be looked down as just an operational, activity, right? So we have moved past so much on the procurement side of things that it's no longer just procurement, it's more strategic function. So in a decentralized model, the lack of alignment of business strategies would exist because procurement is just an operational function. Phase to suppliers. If you look at the 12 countries we have, we pretty much manufacture the same kind of product. Therefore, we probably buy the same kind of raw materials. However, each of these 12 countries probably went to the same supply base as 12 different customers with very limited leverage, right? So that was clearly a limitation. Governance and control, skill set imbalance and career opportunities, because your skill set is limited to the country you operate in that decentralized model. And therefore, as a consequence of all this, there is an inherent model of high procurement cost. So this is where we were when we started the journey about 3 years ago. Now, if you look at the footprint of plants and operations we have, from Oman, and Saudi Arabia all the way to Australia, it's about 9,000 kilometers. If you look from South Korea all the way to Australia, again, that's about 9,000 kilometers. So the question that I kept challenging myself is asking, yes, there are limitations in the decentralized model. However, does centralized make sense? And very soon that I realized that centralized doesn't make sense either, because there is no point in us kind of remote controlling, having a set of team sitting in Singapore or Malaysia or wherever, and then managing 12 countries. That didn't make sense, because procurement, as you all know as leaders of procurement, the essence of procurement is at the ground level. You need to be close to the operations. So what we came up with is a hybrid model called center-led procurement. It's not centralized, but it's center-led. The difference is I have a very lean central team, which is like 3 of us, that run the strategy, that run programs across the division, that can act on all the things that you see on the left side. I would not go on each bullet point there. You can take a picture if you want, but this is our cogwheel of what will happen in a center-led model, which is clearly different from centralized. I'm not bringing everybody centrally and managing it. It is key leadership positions that can manage costs, that can mitigate risk, that understands supply chain finance, that understands global leveraging, that can build supplier relationships. That's what the center-led model can do. It also focuses on one thing that is a human factor thing: career opportunities and people development. Because sourcing was a local function before and considered non-strategic, the career opportunities of people there were also limited to the envelope around which sourcing was considered. I mean, they could move to marketing and go up the ladder, they could move to sales and move up the ladder, but in procurement they hit a roadblock, right? So this also built a model where, and I'll talk about this a little later, about how procurement, center-led procurement also provided career opportunities to people. So that slide actually looked nice when I presented to our shareholders and the board. However, how do you actually make it happen? The make it happen happens because of our philosophy here called global sourcing, local procurement. We clearly defined what we do centrally at a leadership level in terms of what we do as strategy and how we do it. And we also mentioned to the country level business units what they are accountable for and what they are responsible for. So this one simple chart, I remember Brigadier's point yesterday where he said keep it simple. Instead of elaborating this very large, I could make this like 60 slides long, but this one pager actually conveyed the entire meaning of what we were planning to do at the central level, at a leadership level, and at the ground level when people ask what's the role there in my country, right? Now, where are we in the transformation journey? And I'm presenting this slide more as an academic reason because some of you probably will be in some shape or form in some kind of transformation. So you can take bits and pieces from what I'm going to present here. So we were here, and a lot of our manufacturing companies, I would not say tech companies or FMCG companies, they're much more advanced. Generally, manufacturing companies exist in this space for a very long time, right? So where we are, then we started the journey as part of our transformation. So now we are what I would call as an integrated or a cohesive collaborative supply chain. It is center-led, it's integrated, and when I use the term procurement and supply chain interchangeably as well, because in my parlance, supply chain includes, procurement is a subset of supply chain. So any story I say here, procurement, I focus on procurement because it's easy to show the money, but it also involves logistics, it also involves demand and supply planning. So we move from tactical to integrated. I would call this a continuum because that's not a destination, it's still ongoing. Where the challenge lies is next gen. Some of the companies might want to be in that space as part of their journey. Some of us, like in manufacturing, we would say this is good enough. At the end of the day, I am just a commodity manufacturer. Why would I pay for having point of sale flowing back to my demand sensing, right? So the reason why I'm presenting this slide is be aspirational, but be aspirational selectively, right? To what makes sense for your organization. Just because there is a new car, new Porsche there, doesn't mean you need to go and drive, right? So that's where we are. So we pick and choose what we want to be in the next gen. The one thing that we did was business analytics because we are 12 countries apart, different ERP systems. So one thing that gave biggest bang for the buck is not standardizing on the ERP, but rather collecting all these information in a harmonized manner that can be used for spend management. So that's where we are. So spend and organize. So this is nice. This is the selling of the idea to move from a tactical to a more integrated supply chain. But then, what is it? At the end of the day, the question gets asked. Okay, you do all these nice things, Nat. It looks nice on paper. Show me the money, right? So in order for me to kind of show me the money benefits slide, I want to take you through the journey around what we do. So I asked my media guys if I can. I've asked before, not just for this conference. I've asked before whether I can kind of take a video of my shop floor. Obviously, they kept saying, intellectual property and all that, right? And rightfully so. But I consider this as a commodity. At the end of the day, a plasterboard, if nothing else remains in your mind about plasterboard, imagine yourself making a sandwich. It is 2 layers of paper, inside which a bunch of gypsum is mixed up with a lot of chemicals. That's all it is. At the end of the day, that's what happens here. It's a mixer. We add a bunch of gypsum. We sandwich that between 2, I'm making it very simple, extraordinarily technical paper. And then it goes about a mile long. That's our process, right? Where the gypsum actually does molecular reactions with the paper for bonding and strength, moisture resistance, fire resistance, etc. So that if there is a fire, this will not spread, right? So it goes down the line, comes around a kiln, and then it gets cut into 4x8 sheets, and then it's loaded onto the trucks. And to give you a perspective, we manufacture about 450 million square meters of plasterboard every year amongst these 12 countries. And what that means is, if you put all the boards one behind the other, the 4x8 boards that I'm talking about, you can circle the earth 10.5 times. That's how much plasterboard we produce. And we still aren't able to keep up with demand, right? So as a consequence, we use a lot of paper, we use a lot of gypsum, and we use a lot of energy. We use clean energy. None of our plants are coal burning, it's all natural gas, but we do use a bunch. So when I consolidated this information across the 12 countries as part of our transformation, here is what I found. I am accountable, or my team is accountable, for about $550 million. Actually, she was right, it's about $600 million now. This slide is slightly dated, out of which the Pareto law applies all the time. For 500 million of that cost is from 6 different categories of items, right? Energy, freight, gypsum, paper, steel, and additives. So now, all of a sudden, I have a great view around what I spend my money on, and I have a great view on what to focus on to save money, right? My team now only focuses on these 6 things. When I say, I'm again simplifying it, the key focus areas would always come down to this when it comes to cost efficiencies. And there are other spend areas as well, right? So those are minor. So having said all that, one of the key learnings which I have had over, maybe the last 25 years of doing this, any transformation journey, as all of you, you guys are very mature from a digital standpoint, you've implemented ERPs and things like that. One of the key things that any transformation journey needs is to have the people behind you, is to have the support, one, not just of the stakeholders. The management will always support, nice programs such as this. How do you make the ground level troops go along with this journey along with you? So that was my key challenge. And I always thought, unless I get my team energized and unless I get my team part of this journey will not have a good end, right? What was the worst that could happen? I could get fired and they could go back to a decentralized model. That was the easiest option, right? But I did have a challenge to get this going. So here is where it is. So initially, the country procurement heads that report to me were all managing their own countries. The China guy managed China. So he would have the manufacturing and plant relationships, the buying part of it, and he was the single point of accountability in China. So I answered the question, what's in it for me, when he asked the question, right? So the way that we were successful is, in addition to managing their country, what I also empowered them to do is to take care of one category of item, commodity or energy, across the division. Now, all of these guys were now totally energized, right? One, they get to visit exotic places like Vietnam. 2, they were energized the fact that they're able to collaborate with others. And more importantly, number 3, which is now they were able to get the visibility at a C-level, suite, right? Because when I have a steel meeting, strategy meeting, the guy that now manages steel across the division is the guy that manages China procurement as well. So I take him along for steel negotiations. I make him present our divisional steel strategy. So that answered, of course it does come with a little bit of remuneration help, but at the end of the day, even without, what I realize now is, even without a remuneration component, the fact that we are able to trust them to give more, that was the what's in it for me answer. Now it's become second nature. Everybody is looking for divisional wide initiatives that they can participate on. They know what global leverage means, and they completely are comfortable with owning cross-functional initiatives. Not just in procurement, they could run an IT initiative. If I say, go get business users to come in here, get their support and run those IT initiatives, they'll be able to run that now. So that is the kind of, you need to always carry your people along in any transformation journey. That's the most important thing. You can have the best ideas on paper, the best execution team, best consultants, but at the end of the day, if you don't carry your people along, you're going to fail. So that's where I think we were successful. Now, at the end of this, it's always the show me slide. This is what my CEO wants. Okay, all this is nice, Nat, but show me the money, right? So the last 3 years, I don't have the 2018 numbers here, we were able to remove about $65 million from the network in terms of cost savings on key commodities. We did not go behind low-hanging fruits. We did not do that, and deliberately so. We said, where is the big chunks of money that we can go behind? We had to let go of some suppliers who were kind of milking us for a while without even realize that we've been taken for a ride. So we made strategic partnership with a limited set of suppliers now, but they're in for the long run. The other thing that we have started doing is index-based pricing. So at the end of the day, procurement is not rocket science. As long as you know what drives the price of your raw materials, generally there is an index in the marketplace that you can follow, which will show similar trend lines. So just follow that and make your contracts index-based. That's one of the things that we did. So the $65 million of saving, I would actually qualify it a little bit, because we did have some tailwinds in terms of good commodity pricing as well at that time, luckily for us. But the main point here is we leveraged volumes, we ran global RFPs, we rationalized our supply base and made key supplier partnerships. That helped. And we are continuing to save money. It's over 80 million now as of today. So this is where I'm ashamed to show, right? So whenever people ask me, yeah, Nat, all this is nice. Until the last slide I liked you, and now all of a sudden I don't like you, is because we don't have any complex set of digital tools. I know this is a digital conference, but we don't have any set of complex digital tools. Each country still runs their own ERP. The one thing that I did invest money is on the analytics side of things, both on the market intelligence side of things, and also what I call as BI tool, which will allow me to recognize opportunities, will allow me to track supplier spend and things like that. I tell myself all the time, and this is purely Nat's perspective, in a complex environment, the last thing you want is additional complexity. So I pick and choose really, really carefully what we need to implement in terms of IT solutions. And fortunately for me, I have a CIO who supports that strategy, right? So he doesn't come and throw tools at me and says, Nat, go use it. Yes, we try it. To somebody that says try and fail, we do that. But at the end of the day, my strategy again is keep it simple in a complex environment. So that's what we're doing. We use a lot of smaller tools that we have in place, but still are able to generate cost savings. Somebody might say, if you use this tool, you might double that savings, but I'll wait for that. So future ready capabilities. This is, now that we are very well into the journey of, having an integrated supply chain, what are you going to do in future, Nat? This is a question I, constantly get asked. So I'm actually looking forward to the sessions after this. There's a panel that's going to talk on blockchain. I'm very eager to listen to that, because this is something that my consultants have been telling me it's very good that I need to do this. Recently, only I myself kind of understood the difference between Bitcoin and blockchain, right? To tell you the truth. I kind of use those terms synonymously, but really blockchain is the technology, Bitcoin is the financial instrument. So I don't care about Bitcoin anymore. I focus more on what blockchain can offer, and I'm seeing some exciting things. So we'll probably use it on certain shippers that I've already implemented, like Maersk. We might say, Maersk, for certain pallets, show us the blockchain transaction and how it can, how it can help us. Couple of the other things, many of you probably are doing. We don't have a self-certification portal for suppliers. We are doing that. We are having a procurement control room. When I say it's not like an airport control, right? It's not like people with computers and dashboards. It's more on the governance side of things. Because 12 countries, there are enough nuances on legal, regulatory, and compliance. So that is the control room that controls. So that is going to be centrally managed. The last two are the ones that I'm very, very excited about. We do a lot of co-researching with our suppliers. So we take our problems and sit with suppliers and ask them to build products for us which will solve our problems, rather than just take their portfolio of what they have and just say, try to use it, Nat. We are at a point where it's a procurement-led innovation is what I would say. And the last thing, it's applicable universally, again because it touches the human factor. Not everybody in the organization wants to be a manager or a director or a senior manager or a VP. Some people are really good at what they do. Create a track for those people to enhance their career growth in the core competence that they have. And that's what we're doing. For example, my resources in Vietnam and Thailand, they never want to be a director of sourcing. They just want to do their procurement jobs day in and day out really well. So what I've done is call them procurement scientists and have given a separate career path for them, which will allow them to grow, but without managerial responsibilities. And that's working really well. The other thing that they have done, I have done as part of their career development, is gone are the days where you could pound the fist on the table and negotiate a better deal with your suppliers. One thing that I tell my team all the time, when you go into a negotiation, you need to know more about the supplier than the supplier knows about themselves, right? In terms of their input cost, in terms of their competitive strategy, in terms of their margins that you can kind of calculate. So that's where we are in terms of what we want to do, what I call as future ready. And the last two ones are the ones that I'm spending most of my time and energy on. Every year, twice a year, we will have a supplier and procurement summit where I get all my team members across these 12 countries into one place, maybe Bangkok or Singapore or Kuala Lumpur, and have a conference where it's not just our team to collaborate and know each other well, it's also for suppliers to come and demonstrate and showcase their products to us as a whole team. So that I don't consider myself as an expert in everything, right? So that's why I get my team. I get the technical team as well. The R&D guys are here. So we have supplier and procurement conference twice a year, and we call select suppliers each time. My tagline for this, they have been using this tagline from day one when I started this job of this transformation. You would not see a procurement word in there. Across the network of plants that we have and across the countries that we have, three things that work well are all related to human factors: collaboration, camaraderie, and communication. You do all those three things right, and you keep your employees happy, your team happy, things will get done automatically. Okay, it's not rocket science. I have a great team. Every day they live by these core values. One thing that I always tell my team, when it comes to safety versus cost, safety always wins. Don't give me a reason to have bought a cheaper product which compromises on safety, and that's non-negotiable, right? And every other core values. Happy to also say we were we were one of the youngest companies to have been awarded as a finalist on the Procurement Leaders Forum for being a leader in the transformation journey. So we are very proud of that. We write a lot of articles and blogs in industry magazines. That's how our people also get exposure. Now, one of the things that I tell people, when I go to key negotiations with key suppliers, the amount of how much I talk is directly proportional, or inversely proportional to the amount of negotiations I do. What I mean by it is, like I said, if the China guy is in a steel negotiation, these days I remain silent for most part of the meeting. That itself exhibits that the organization has matured. The guy now knows how to handle negotiations in a very scientific manner. Starting this journey in 2015, I used to be the talker in all negotiations. Not anymore. I'm a listener and the final handshaker. That's about it. Right? So that's the mark of success. And that's me. You can reach me at Parameswaran at USGBoral.com. And I did very well on time. I still have 2 minutes. I am open to taking questions. Thank you all. Thank you all for listening.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Nat Parameswaran from USG Boral. I now request Mr. Rajan to kindly come forward to present a token of appreciation.
Somebody from that side who were questioning something.
Oh, is that one?
Thank you so much for the wonderful session, sir.
Thank you.